So I have a memory of sitting at a terminal in a like mid-1970s data center playing Colossal Cave. And I absolutely loved Colossal Cave. That was my first brain exploding moment of what a video game was and what a computer was capable of doing. The idea that you could go on an adventure and it would tell you a story and you were an actor in that story and could tell it what to do, to pick something up, to put two things together to make a new thing, to solve problems. So I was only about like 6 maybe, and then we got a computer, and my memories are of being the first kid to have a computer at home, for people not really understanding what they were. Now my parents' house is full of old computers and cupboards, basically, because pretty much every generation of computers we got the latest and greatest thing. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. I was born in London. We moved to Minneapolis when I was 3. Spent a couple of years in Minneapolis. I still support the Minnesota Vikings. I still have kind of an emotional connection with Minnesota. And then we moved to Reading, and then to a small village just outside Zurich in Switzerland where I grew up. I always felt I didn't want to live in a big city, that London was far too big as a metropolis, huge city. But I also didn't want to live in a small town either. I wanted a good sized city. And then moved to Sheffield in 2004 and I kind of fell in love with Sheffield. There's so much intelligence in this city, so much just under the surface. You scratch away at it and it seems grimy sometimes on the top, but underneath are people just doing amazing things, just full of art and culture and just people doing stuff, thinking about stuff and making stuff. And I love that about a place. It may be that other cities are like this. I moved around so a lot, I never really put roots down, but doing things like TEDx Sheffield, co-producing it, meant that I came into contact with people that were just doing things, and people would sort of make me aware of other people and stories that were going on, or I'd go and find them. And I just think it's amazing. I love that about it. Even when I was a kid, I dreamt of becoming a games developer of some kind, but it seemed very undervalued at the time. So I find myself now in my early 50s, and like a lot of my story has now been told, right? I look at my life and it's like, well, I know what happened now. All of my uncertainties and insecurities when I was younger they've played out. I know what happened. I know how my story turned out. And so when I look back, I always think like I was always doing the thing that I wanted to do at the time that I wanted to do it, pretty much. And if I didn't want to do something, I just moved. Like I just quit and went and did something else. I've always had the privilege and the kind of support to be able to do the thing that I wanted to do at the time that I wanted to do it. And so in a sense, my career has not turned out anything like how I imagined, because I never even gave myself the luxury of imagining what it was going to turn out like. We took the view when our kids were very little that the whole concept of screen time makes no sense. That screens are just a medium like paper. We wouldn't limit our kids in terms of how much time they spend in front of paper. The important thing is the content, not the medium. So, you wouldn't, there are lots of inappropriate things on paper. There's lots of inappropriate things in screens. The issue is not the time kids spend in front of screens or paper. The issues might be how much time they spend moving, or how much activity they get, or how much fresh air, or how much daylight, or how they're physically healthy. But the issue is not the screen. The issue is the content. And this, screen is not just a passive screen. A screen is an interactive screen. A screen is a window into a creative endeavor, a creative tool, a thing that you can use to express yourself, to make things with, to reach out and connect with other people. It's an amazing, all of our devices are incredible. They're pieces of magic. And by artificially limiting access to it, you're basically limiting access to magic. And it's much more important for us to be involved in what our kids are doing with their devices than it is to limit their access to those devices. My wife is a play therapist. She's a child developmental expert, and the friction that's caused by artificially limiting access to things and turning what should be a source of amusement and entertainment and education and creativity into a bone of contention within a family is detrimental anyway. It really hasn't been that hard. Some of it is really simple things, like when you've got a very young child, showing them how to take a screenshot, so that when something exciting happens or something happens in their game or in their world that's interesting, they can take a screenshot. And I used to come back from work, or I used to finish work and come down and just go through the photos to see what my kids had screenshotted and ask them about it. Kids need to be encouraged. Even if they just play games, like that is a job, that is a future. There's a massive future in playing games and understanding games and teaching games. And games are intellectual stimulation. They're opportunities to learn about things. They're creative. I think the 21st century demands people that know and understand games as much as it demands and people who know and understand technology. At Sheffield Digital, we run a job board. You don't have to be a member. Any company can advertise a digital role on our board. We see the changing landscape of the job market as it is at the moment. So we've seen robot trainers appear on the board recently, for example. So people who are working on the data sets that train robots to do industrial tasks or work with humans. We've got a lot of data scientists. We've got a lot of people working in AI and natural language processing. This city is a big center for natural language processing. I think there's a lot of these technical specialisms that are constantly changing and emerging. And I think some things are very generic at the moment, like data scientist, but will become increasingly specialized. So I think they'll become even more specialized as these areas of practice are built out. But I think in terms of management, I think a lot of work is done in cross-functional teams, and a lot of concepts from agile software development are moving into other forms of development and production. So I think we'll see product managers and scrum masters, the set of roles around how agile teams operate. I think we'll see those filter into other domains increasingly. I think managers, their roles may not change, but what they do and the practices that they adopt and the kinds of people they look for to become part of their teams and the way they manage their teams are going to change. I have a games room. I think there's 12 consoles permanently plumbed in the games room. Everything from like a Atari VCS up to a modern PlayStation 4 Pro with a VR headset, and kind of like from different generations in between. My particular interest and passion is second generation consoles. So these are consoles that came out between 1975 and about 83. So post Pong, the first generation of consoles with cartridges, games cartridges and onboard CPUs, and 8-bit microcomputers, and like hybrid physical digital experiences. So board games that require a computer, or physical devices that allow you to interact with computers in new ways. So I'm really interested in the early attempts to bring computers and humans together in other ways than just through keyboards or through joysticks. To be honest, I have more fun taking them apart and rebuilding them than I do playing them a lot of the time. But yeah, we do play with them, like all through lockdown. My son and I did not all through lockdown, but for months, we did a live stream every Sunday morning of us playing an old Atari game. So I think we did 23 episodes playing different games. The thing that I love about these, right, as well as just the nostalgia aspect of them, is that technology moved so rapidly that a lot of these computers and consoles became obsolete very quickly. Their true capability was never fully extracted from the machines because the next big thing came along. And I find that fascinating. It's, there's archaeology there, but there's also the ability to take these artifacts and make them do things that no one has ever done before. which is a very nerdy thing to do and to want to do, but it's a hobby.